welcome back for another episode of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the video and article that I do for comicbookinvest.com where I talk about those cheap books that are probably still tucked away in those dollar bins, those discount boxes that you can probably find based off of some of the recent news, rumors, announcements, things going on in the comics, etc. As I read through my new release books, I see a lot of connectivity to some characters that may have reappeared or shown up back in those issues, and I think it's kind of fun to go and look at some of those first appearances for those characters we see popping up back in the comics, or those characters rumored to be in the next TV show or movie, etc. And I tell you some cheap options of some books you might be able to find related to that information. Hopefully you're enjoying that stuff as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's selection of books, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro and I will be right back. All right, let's just get this started and get right into the comics. So these are some new releases that I read through this week where I saw some characters pop back up or have been hanging around lately in recent issues that I think you can go and find maybe some of their first appearances or some books related to them when you go out hunting in your dollar bins. So sort of like a scavenger hunt, kind of fun little exercise for you to go and get some things tied into the books that we're all reading and enjoying on New Comic Book Wednesday. We are going to start off first with this Immortal Thor number 20. Yet another awesome Alex Ross cover. He's done a great run of covers on this current series. And here they're getting ready for, I guess, Thor's final adventure beginning here. I guess they're going to wrap up this volume and give us a whole new number one, as Marvel loves to do. But for now, they're actually going to call back to a character that's been around in this current volume and series. And that's this bad boy right here. If I'm going to pronounce this correctly, this character is Tyrannos, sort of, God level evil threat kind of thing. He has been around since the beginning of this series, and it looks like they're going to be wrapping up that storyline very soon. With that, as I mentioned, the first appearance is the first issue of this series, which was 20 issues ago. So you got to go back to August of 2023, which doesn't seem all that long ago, but I'm sure with the print run on this book, with the multiple covers that were available, despite the fact that this did have a higher than normal $6.99 price tag, there's still probably plenty of discount copies out there, whether they be half off a cover in $1, $2 boxes, whatever sort of overstock system your comic shop has, or you go to a half price books, places like that, wherever you're finding your cheap books, this is still something that's probably got extra copies laying around out there that you can go and dig out, because this is where this character first appears here right at the start. So that's got to be the bookend epic of this Immortal Thor series is coming to a close. So go and grab that first one if you missed out the first time. Even with that said, even online, this is not an expensive book, and that's the whole point of this series. I'm not here to try to tell you about expensive books. Most of these are cheap to begin with copies selling for $1.25 at auction, $2.50 to $3.50 in one of those choose your issue sort of listings that we see plenty out there on eBay. Those $2.50 to $3.50 listings, again, that's half a cover, are out there, and then there's individual copies also looking for prices like $3.50, which again, on that $6.99 price tag, that's like half price. So discount books is what I'm talking about here, and one of those books you can go and probably find out there if you're interested in checking that out. Now, up next, I got another title, which I think I covered this character a couple of months ago or a couple of issues ago. I mean, same difference. But here in Spider-Boy 16, as we're coming to a conclusion on this tournament fight style thing with the Dragons Challenge, with the sidekick and mentor. So we had Spider-Boy paired up with Daredevil in this series, and we had Bullseye with, Spider-Girl, etc. But new this week, we're wrapping up that storyline with issue 16, and still hanging around in this issue, we got our man Bengal. I don't know how we want to pronounce it. I guess it's Bengal. It's like a Bengal tiger. He's hanging out there with his sidekick as well. And again, I know I mentioned this book before, but it doesn't hurt to just talk about it again real quick. He's been around for a bit, showing up in Daredevil a while back. Pretty cool costume. He's got some size like, the weapons that Elektra uses. A little variation on them, obviously. But back in Daredevil 258, on the cover, name dropped even there on the cover as well, so it makes an easy and reliable, no dispute. This is the first appearance of the character, as he's also inside from 1988. There's Bengal. Again, Cool design with the tiger stripes and all that fun stuff, and it's still a very cheap book. So even though we talked about this a couple of months ago when this storyline started and he kind of popped in, he's been hanging around for issues. It's coming to a close, so who knows when we'll see him again. But still, this is a book you can find out there for cheap. As you can see, auction ending with 99 cents. Lots of comics selling for $1.22 or $4.25 for 5 issues. It's a very cheap book and one you can find out there. Even copies listed are only asking $3, $4, up to $8 with free delivery. So it's not an expensive book at all. So again, fun book for you to hunt. Go see if you can find it out there when you're digging. One more Marvel book before we move on to the other publishers. One shot, crazy one shot, reprinting those online web comics, I guess, those Infinity books. We have Marvel Mutts. Okay, I guess animal books, I guess they have their place. I mean, they're not really for me, but I'm sure plenty of people enjoy them. A couple of covers on this one as well, but inside this issue, we got the whole crew of Marvel Mutts already on the cover, but I'll show you some little bits inside here as well. As you can see, that's part of the storyline. So we got our main man here, Lockjaw. So he's the big guy of the crew. He's been around forever. So let me just preface this by saying I'm not telling you you're going to find Lockjaw's first appearance in the dollar bin. It's just not going to happen. I mean, he first appeared all the way back in 1965 in Fantastic Four number 45. Good to know the book. This is right around the times of the Inhumans and all that were being introduced. Good to know the book. Great run. I mean, if you remember this run on Fantastic Four is one of the best ever. I mean, we got the Inhumans, you got Silver Surfer and Galactus, you got Black Panther by the time we got to issue 52. So like within like 10 issues or so, tons of very classic characters were created in that run. With that said, Lockjaw is in that mix, and he was in there with the Inhuman run at the time. And again, you're not going to find that in $1. You're not going to find that in a cheap box. That's not what I'm telling you to look out for if we're looking for Lockjaw. I'm just kind of for fun telling you that Lockjaw actually had his own series at one point. It was only 3 issues long, but he did have his own series back in 2018. So maybe you find those books in the dollar bins or the cheap boxes if you want to get a little Lockjaw solo. I mean, if you like the Marvel Mutts book, you're probably going to like a Lockjaw book. So pretty cool. Cover A. Or I'm sorry, it was 4 issues. My bad, not 3. 4 issues, because here's issues 2, 3, and 4, with my favorite being issue 3 there with Spider-Ham doing the AF-15 homage. That's my favorite of the bunch. It's also by David Nakayama, so I'm a little biased there as a David Nakayama fan. But fun books for you to go and look for. This whole series, you can find it out there in those boxes. No one's paying top dollar for this series. Look, even online, that favorite cover of mine sold 2 bids, 99 cents. That means somebody bid on top of themselves just to cover their 99 cents and nobody topped them. $16 for the whole series. That's basically paying cover price. But available copies looking for around cover at $4.90. And then you've got the complete set only asking $8.95. So again, this is something you can find out in those cheap boxes. So yeah, give it a look-see if you want more Lockjaw. If you're interested in the other Mutts and the other puppies here in this storyline, we'll get to the rest of them here as well. Up next, we're going to look at this one here. I think this is the character Mittens. I don't know a lot about Mittens. I think Mittens was one of those online creations, so not a lot of appearances in the actual comics. I think Mittens was more of, like I said, those Avengers Infinity and whatever web comics that Marvel has been releasing. And then they'll eventually go to print, like this issue is. But Mittens did have a little cameo spot in last year's Women of Marvel from 2024. Came out exactly a year ago, so last February, because we're getting a new run of Women of Marvel for, I think it's Women's History Month is next month in March. So we're going to get a new special and a couple of specials for that coming up. But last year's, we did get this tiny little shot of all of these pets from the Marvel Universe. And up front, down below there, you see Mittens amongst the crew. So you got Carnage's pet, you got squirrels, you got cats with the I forget the name, the cat from Captain Marvel, and you got the raptor from Runaways, etc. A lot of different pets throughout Marvel's history, but Mittens is right there down in front. Again, just a cameo, but that's really all we got before this issue, this Marvel Mutts issue. So with that, I guess it's a first appearance cameo. This is around cover price or less, $4, $5 it's selling for. Copies listed $4, $6, $7. Not an expensive book. It had a $6 cover, so anything under $6 is a discount. So just something to keep an eye on. All right, moving on. We've got more mutts to get to, more dog characters to get through, and way back here, again, they show up more throughout the issue. I just picked the one panel because it was easy because they were all there. So way back there, also on the cover, you see Cosmo. You all know Cosmo. Cosmo has even been in the movies already, in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, and pretty cool character. And since Cosmo already appeared in the movies, there's already been a spec cycle hit on Cosmo's first appearance. So it may not be in the dollar bins. It's always worth looking for that Nova number 8. Came out, a while ago, back in 2007. It's always good to know, but finding it in those cheap boxes since the profile of Cosmo is higher, having been in the movies already, it could be tougher, but that doesn't mean you can't find this at a discount somewhere. That's all I'm saying. Nova number 8, gorgeous Granoff cover there as well. Inside the guts of this book, also the art inside is good as well. But we get introduced to Cosmo, the cosmonaut, dog that was left up in space there. Anyway, fun character, interesting character, and you can see here with listings and even some sales, it could be worth a few bucks, $14 to $20. Some recent sales, asking prices in that $15 to $20 kind of mark. So if you do get lucky and find one of these, this is one that might be worth more than some of the other cheap books I've been telling you about. So there's a little bit of a mix, but again, this is kind of a known book. It's been known for a few years now, so you get lucky if you find it. Moving on. Another dog here that got a little bit of a spec hype at a time. This one right here, the Ghost Dog. Bats, the Ghost Dog. Showed up back in that Doctor Strange run where Loki was taken over as the Sorcerer Supreme for a bit. Back in 2017, we're talking about Legacy Doctor Strange issue 381. And inside this, you get introduced to Bats. And then, it could be a little convoluted. And then eventually, Bats is Ghost Dog. And, over the next couple of issues, it is what it is. Point being, this would be the first appearance of Bats. And for a time, this is the book people wanted. This thing hit the hot list before. It was like $15. It might have even hit 20 for all I remember. But currently, it's a little bit more than cover. $6, $7. Listings, looking for $5 to $7. It's got a $3.99 cover, so those are a little bit of a premium. So maybe you get lucky, but it's not really much luck. There is also a second print of this book as well. You can keep an eye out for as too while you're digging, but this is going to be your first Bats. One more. I think we got one more here. Way back here in the back, another dog that's also been on our spec cycle before. It's weird to think that we have so many dog characters that have gotten hot books before, but hey, it's true. And also, I guess why we should look at a book like this that brings them all together in a sort of Avengers team of dogs. But the Marvel Mutts, way back there, it's Lucky, the pizza dog. As we all know from the Hawkeye series. Not only the Hawkeye comic series, but also brought to life in the Disney Plus series of Hawkeye a few years ago. So, Lucky, good read, great story, how they come together. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't read this already, but go back, August 2012. There's also trade paperbacks, too, if you want to just read the whole run. But Hawkeye number 1 would be the first appearance of Lucky. I know what you're thinking. This book also was very pricey at a time. It was sought after for a stretch because of the Disney Plus series. And here, inside the issue, he's got multiple. He's part of the storyline, but there's Lucky there inside this issue, and then comes to be Hawkeye's pet partner there, I guess, at the end. But despite the fact that this was on that spec radar a while ago, you can still find copies out there. Yes, a little inconsistent. Copies selling for under $10 or over 20. Then we've got listings around 10 to 12 bucks. So yes, it could be a little pricier, but we're not talking about a $100 book or a $50 book here. This is still something that maybe you get lucky, you find it. There's also multiple printings on this. I think there's at least 4 printings on this one, and there's varying degrees of how much people will pay for those at later printings because of perceived rarity and obsessive compulsive collecting, all that stuff. The prices there could be inconsistent as well. But it's definitely things to keep an eye out for when you're out there digging. With that said, that's all I got for you from Marvel. So before we move on, I want to remind all of you out there who haven't tried Whatnot, now's your time to sign up. Get yourselves a free $15 credit to spend on whatever you want with whomever you want. No strings attached. You get to try out the app and try out the auctions there, with nothing to lose except the free $15 to spend. If you want to spend more, that's on you. You help out the channel, you get yourself something nice. And in the coming weeks, I'm going to go and make my way back to Whatnot to get rid of a few books myself. So if you want to go and pick some up and want to save it, go ahead. You can come spend it with me, but you don't have to. You can spend it with anybody. It doesn't have to be spent with me. But I will be going back on there. I do kind of miss it. It was kind of fun. It's a different marketplace. It's a live auction setting where I'll be talking about the comics and showing it off in live as people were commenting and bidding in a sort of a community sort of a vibe. So it is kind of fun. It does take a lot of work to set up, which is why I haven't done it in a while. So I'm in the process of getting ready for one in a couple of weeks. So again, if you haven't tried it, get yourself ready to go. More to come on that later. Now, with that said, let's keep it rolling and not waste any more time with with more notes. But Action Comics this week. So going over to DC, looking at Action Comics, Superman Superstars. I mean, there's just so many Superman characters these days. It's hard to keep up. I have been in and out on the Action Comics run, but I decided to take a look at this because I think they just wrapped up a prior run. So in this cover appearance of both characters I want to talk about because they're both right there in this cover A. But the first one is also inside the guts of this book. It's the Atomic Skull, the current Atomic Skull that Clark is going and interviewing there inside the lockup. But there were two. I think just two. The original Atomic Skull goes back a ways. That was Albert Michaels. It was this guy here. Yes, he wore yellow tights, a green cape, a little bit of a different look. But that was the OG original Atomic Skull that showed up back in the 70s, 1978 to be precise, in Superman. So right there on the cover, no doubt about it. You see him right there, big old arrow saying the Atomic Skull, rocking the yellow and green, as I just showed you. And he's also inside the guts of the book as well, starting right off with the splash page. Boom, there's your Atomic Skull, the original one. So if you want to go and look for that, this isn't that hard of a book to find. It is out there. Look, copies have sold for only $3.65 and $4.50. So it's not a pricey book, as you might have immediately jumped to the conclusion of, well, classic DC, it's from the 70s, and how am I going to find that? There's a lot of that 70s Superman, Jimmy Olsen type books buried in those cheap boxes. So don't discount it as something you're not going to come across. They're out there. You just got to do some digging. But even online, yes, there are some copies listed for $11, $12, but also look, $2.24. Not a big demand for Atomic Skull, but it is still kind of a fun DC character. And again, a first that you can go and find for cheap. That's what I'm talking about here. For fun. Comics should be fun, right? That's our first Atomic Skull, but that's not the one that's actually in this issue. The one that's in this issue is the current Atomic Skull, which is a character by the name of Joseph Martin. A little bit of a different look. He took on the mantle in this issue of Superman from the 90s. So took a couple decades, but then we got a new Atomic Skull here during that Armageddon event. So September 1991, inside this story, you can see here, even the ghost of the original Atomic Skull. Now I am the Atomic Skull. We get a new version. Cool. Again, this is a book that is not expensive at all. And I know, you can find those 90s Superman books out there in the cheap boxes because there are plenty of them. And with that said, this is a book that's sold in lots, not even individually, sold with multiple issues. A pair of issues, $1.99. 4 issues together, a lot of 4, $1.99. That's 50 cents a book, both sold for. Copies listed, well, individual copies are seeking $2 up to $5. It's still not a pricey book. It's still just a fun first for you to go and dig for. So I thought I'd throw it in here for fun. Because again, showed up in action. You want to know where he came from? This is where he came from. Moving on, that's not the only character that was on that Action Comics cover. Also in the background there, we've got this lady right here. This is a character of Scorch. Also one that goes back a little bit of a ways. Not as far back as our Atomic Skull, but she's in this story. Superman going and talking to her as well. Character of Scorch, she showed up right at the turn of the century in the year 2000 during that Emperor Joker event, that Arkham thing, I think it was. But anyway, July 2000, inside this book, we are introduced here. It's like a cameo. It's not a big appearance. She's part of this villainous crew with Bizarro, etc. They get introduced at the start of this little story arc. So there she is, pointing her out there. It's not a huge first. She does talk. I don't even know if we get her name yet, but there she is inside this issue. In this book, despite the fact it's got a cool Ed McGuinness card cover with the flip-flop, I kind of dig it. It's not expensive. Look, $3.25, one sold for individually. A whole run of the series there, well, not the series, but a lot of the storyline for $21.50. Individual copies, yes, $5, $8, $11. Yeah, could get pricey depending on condition, etc. because it's got a cool cover too. But it's really in the next issue when we expand the storyline. So we go to, well, I shouldn't say the next issue, but the next part of the storyline in Adventures of Superman with Supergirl, that this is where we see where Scorch's intentions were made. She was made to be a villain to face off against Supergirl. So once we get to the Supergirl issue of the storyline, that's where she gets to shine. So also in July, but the next part, issue 582, we see her here still amongst all the cronies, all these baddies all together. There's Scorch. So awesome cover again. Well, I like it with the McGinnis, the flip-flop card view. I kind of dig it. Copy sold for 99 cents. A lot of $10. Copies listed are only looking for $3.50, up to $8.50, but that's with free shipping. So really, we're only talking a couple of bucks for this issue. And I guess if you want to get with those weird terms, first full, I just showed you. In the other issue, she was only in like one panel. I don't even think she was named. So yes, we get more on the character in this next issue. You call it whatever you want. I'm not going to get into semantics here. I'm just here to tell you what's in the books and how much they go for. You make the call of how much you want to spend on any of this stuff. I'm not looking to rewrite the history or identify or, clear up any confusion. It is what it is. That's the character. One panel or not, character's there. Make of that what you will, of which one you want to invest your money in yourself. I'm not going to tell you which one should be worth more. With that said, let's move off of DC. There wasn't a lot that I wanted to get into with DC, even despite the fact that Green Lantern Corps was coming out, but I didn't get a chance to read that one yet because I didn't get that book yet. But there's a few that I could have covered. We're just going to move on, though, to Transformers. So current Transformers run from the Energon, the Energon verse here, the Energon universe out of Skybound. Thoroughly enjoying it with the connective tissue to Void Rivals and G.I. Joe, etc. I'm enjoying it. It's a good run. We're already up to issue 17. I can't believe Transformers is already up to issue 17, but here we are. And albeit the fact that this first character I want to talk about has been in multiple issues so far, I want to point out that we're still the fight's still going on between Bruticus and why am I blanking on the Destructicons? Constructicons. But yeah, they're still fighting it out. But we also have Astro Train here. Sorry, I'm just going off the cuff, and sometimes I get a little bit of a brain fart and forget things. But that all said, Astro Train right here, even was featured on a cover a couple of issues ago. One of those triple changers goes from a train to a spaceship to a robot. It was cool. I remember this figure. I had one. But he goes back a ways in the comics to the original Marvel run, March 87, issue 29. This one, they're featuring the Scraplets on the cover, but inside you also get the other triple changers. So you got the tank guy and an Astro Train here as well, as I'll show you on the inside of this. Guts here, boom. So while they're talking to Rat Bat, one of the newer cassette tapes for Soundwave, Astro Train is right there amongst this crew of triple changers. So there's our first for the triple changers. Not a pricey book. Look, copies are sold for $5 to $10. Copies listed $2.62, $4, up to $10. You could find some of this old Transformer stuff out there, and not every issue is great and collectible. I mean, they're great to read and collectible if you like to collect Transformers books like I do, but if you are looking for like big money first appearances, sure, maybe Astro Train's not going to be the biggest money getter in the world, but who knows? Who knows how much more his profile will grow in this new Energon universe, because they seem to be rewriting the rules with the importance of some of these characters, of like who gets to take the spotlight and who normally has the spotlight and who's getting the spotlight now. So it is kind of interesting to see that. With that said, some other characters getting a little bit of featured time in this comic is we got this little guy right here. He was one of those little tiny ones, little tiny Transformers. He went by the name of Beachcomber. He was like a little dune buggy Jeep, one of those little guys. But he getting a little featured storyline here, and he's not alone. He's also joined by another one of those the little Transformers that you used to be able to get for cheap back in the day, and that's this guy Warpath. He was like a little red tank. And yes, very simple to transform, and they weren't very large, but I had them, and I still enjoyed them. Both of these characters inside this storyline together. I'm putting these two together with Beachcomber and Warpath because they both actually have the same first appearance. So that's why I'm showing you both at once, because then we can tie it all back to the same comic for you to go and hunt for, which is Transformers number 17. Yes, they're going back to Cybertron in this issue, but inside the guts of this, from March of 1986, we do get introduced to a bunch of new Transformers. Again, a lot of these were those little guys that came out during that run, the little green saucer looking dude. And there's the tank guy, Warpath, and Beachcomber right next to him. Yes, Perceptor is there, but that red airplane was another one of the little ones. I can't remember what his name was. Sea Spray? Maybe it was Sea Spray. Anyway, a lot of characters, a lot of little Transformers, and first appearances abound. So inside this one, you get a twofer. So you got those two together. And again, it's a cheap book. Look, copy sold, $4, $6.50. Copies listed, $4, 10 to 12. Yeah, on the higher end, but it's still not going to break your wallet. And I'm telling you not to go and buy it online. I'm telling you, go dig in a box. You'll probably find it out there for cheap. So go dig in those boxes for fun. And while we're talking about boxes, maybe you need some boxes. Maybe you need some bags and boards. Short boxes, long boxes, top loaders, whatever you need to keep your comics and collectibles safe. You can go to BCW and buy those supplies for them. And if you're going to spend that money, you might as well save some money while you do it. So you can use the link below if you want, but definitely use the code RENA10 to save yourself 10% off your next order over at BCW. That's where I got all my short boxes. They're all BCW boxes. I got them surrounding me in this room as I film every time out. And yeah, it's what I use. It's what I use personally. I know there's a lot of MyLights and other options out there for everyone, but I'm good with my current system. So you do what you need to do, but save yourself money if you're ordering from there going forward by using that RENA10 code. Now, before we wrap up for the day, I do have a couple of news items that I want to get to tie into some books. So we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly with these two stories that we are going to be getting some variant covers in the future to celebrate the 50th anniversary of one of comics' greatest couple. I don't know if they're one of comics' greatest couples, but it is one we all know. Wanda and the Vision. Yes, he's an android. Yes, she's a mutant witch, but somehow they make it work. That said, 50th anniversary. Can't believe it's the 50th anniversary that these two have been together. But hey, it is what it is. Going to be celebrating my parents' 50th anniversary soon. With that said, let's go back to that 50th anniversary issue because you know what? You could probably still find it out there because wedding issues, despite the Spider-Man wedding, aren't generally things that tons of people collect or throw big bucks at. Like, remember when Gene Scott got married in the X-Men? Yeah, it's a book people will go spend, $5 to $10 on, but it's not a big pricey book. Even Superman getting married to Lois Lane's not really that huge of a book. When you think about it, in comparison to things, the one we all think of is, Peter Parker marrying Mary Jane. But well before then, back to 1975, we've got Giant Size Avengers number 4, the wedding of these two right here. And like I said, despite the fact that this book is 50 years old now, they're still out there and they're not that expensive. Look, yes, copies were sold for $6 and $11. Come on, that's not too pricey. Even copies listed, yes, they're not be in the greatest of shape, $10 to $15, but that's also what I'm talking about. You might be able to find a copy that's been well loved. To put it in a nice way, that's not going to be a 9.8 candidate tucked away in a box for just a few bucks or a couple of bucks in a discount box somewhere, because it's just not one of those books that everybody's searching for, the wedding of the Vision and the Scarlet Witch. So it's one of those minor keys of the past that it's notable. Some people might pull it out and mark it for a price, but they're not going to mark it for much because, again, it's not a huge demand for it. But it's coming up, so maybe people start thinking about it again and start looking for it again. Who knows? So I'm just telling you, for history's sake, go back and look for that book when you're out there digging. Up next, our last story of the day. I know you guys probably know and probably have already heard that they're going to be doing some sort of live-action Gundam series. Now, Gundam was a little bit after my time as far as popularity goes. It was one of my little brother's thing. I remember he had a lot of Gundam stuff, like his little figures, really cool, but I didn't really watch a lot of like the anime and all that stuff, or even the manga that you could read. But we're getting a movie, and it looks pretty cool, and I'll probably check that movie out when it comes out. This is just something to throw out there for informational purposes. The chances of you finding this in a dollar box or for cheap are very, very slim. I understand that, but that's why I gave you plenty of other options before we got to this point. But I did want to throw it out there in case you weren't aware. In the U.S., if you want the first U.S. appearance in comic book form, I guess, of the Gundam, a lot of people are going to be looking towards this Minx zine. So this is volume 2, number 2. Came out in 1998. And yeah, it's kind of like a magazine comic sort of hybrid thing. But that's how a lot of those, Japanese stories came to us. They came to us in these like zine formats. So this book is not cheap. It's not going to be easy. I just want you to know it in case you stumble upon it, because there's a chance you might be at a yard sale and this thing is just laying there in a pile of old Entertainment Weeklies for some reason, because it was just tucked away in a box somewhere. Who knows? But the point being, somebody did pretty well recently in getting a best offer on less than $10.46. And why I say that's a good price is because you look at what the asking prices are for this one. Auction starting at 29 bucks, buy it now 100. 60 bucks, $85. This ain't easy to find. As I mentioned, it's not easy to find, so I'm just giving it to you for informational purposes. And if you find it, it could be worth a few bucks, but somebody did pretty well in getting that best offer accepted, because they weren't selling it as, first Gundam or anything like that. That's how you got to watch. It's sometimes how these things are listed. Not everybody knows what they have. So just keep an eye out, and it's more information for you to know. Helps you when you're out there hunting. So that's all I'm trying to provide you with. So with all that said, thanks for stopping by and checking this out. Hopefully you enjoyed this, this show as well as this series, everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see you all later with some more content. All right.